Okay, good morning to everybody. We're back after a several week hiatus, and I hope everyone is healthy and dealing with the cold. I didn't think I moved to the Middle East to have this kind of cold. I prefer the very warm weather to the cold, although today is a beautiful day, and I hope everyone will be able to have a chance to go out and enjoy the sunshine. So we last in our the last time we met, we discussed chapter 20 of Sefer Shmuel, uh, and we we talked about the problem of Shaul wanting to kill and finally acknowledging it to his servants and to his household, and including his son Yonatan, that he wanted to kill David. And now we find the, as some people might say, and now the games begin. We know that the Shaul is in at his height of irrationality. He is unable to think straight. He is unable to lead the nation of Israel. He depends on David. He is very, very insecure in his position as king, and he knows that his line, the house of Benjamin, his son Yonatan will not take over as king. And so Yonatan, who is David's friend, has understood this, even though he knows he will never be king and he will never take over after his father. He is very good friends with David. And in the last chapter, in chapter 20, we see that Yonatan finds out, much to his distress, that yes, indeed, his father wants to kill David. And he thought that he would his father would be uh, amenable to a truce. He thought his father that David may be misinterpreting Shaul's actions, but no, we found out that Shaul is literally hell bent on killing David. Now, David flees after Yonatan episode with the arrows. The signal that he had with David, and the signal indicated that yes, indeed, David's life was in danger, and David wastes no time in fleeing the area and leaving his friend behind and trying to find safety. Well, in the chapter 21 and 22, which I think we're going to learn together because they are both very much a part of each other, and very much we see the consequences of actions in both the chapters. I think it's very important that we take a look at both of these chapters together. In these chapters, we're going to learn of the first escapades, basically, of David fleeing and trying to get away from the possibility of Shaul killing him, or Shaul having him killed. And so, consequently, what we're seeing now is the first place that David goes to, which is Nov. Nov was where the Mishkan, where the Kohanim had moved to after Shiloh. When Shiloh was destroyed by the Plishtim and the Aron HaKodesh was taken by the Philistines, we see that, and Eli, the high priest, the last of the high priests, dies. We see that Shiloh no longer remains as the hub of Jewish life, and that the Kohanim and the center of Jewish life moved to the southern city of Nov. Now, Nov was a small place. It was basically where the Kohanim and their families lived. It housed about 85 Kohanim, and we know this from the text. And what we find is that David has no place, no refuge in which to go, because don't forget, his brothers, if he ran home, his brothers were not so friendly towards David. And he probably felt that he couldn't go home because possibly Shaul would have a stakeout of his guards and his servants looking for David if he should go home. So, where does David flee? He goes south to the Judean hills in the desert, and he runs away to Nov. Now, and along the way, we find that in chapter 22, that David kind of puts together a band of men. It's kind of like Robin Hood and his merry men. They're kind of rejects. They're people who owe money. They may be criminals. They may be, street people who have no place to go, but they all believe in David and they join him, and he amasses. I wouldn't call it an army, but I would call it a faithful band of people, of men. And so he and his men go down to Nov. Now they have no supplies, and probably they had no money. They had nothing to sustain themselves with. And they go down to the priestly city of Nov. We will read what happens down there, and we will be introduced to a very, very villainous person by the name of Doeg. You may have heard his name before, but Doeg um, was a terrible, terrible person, and he was hell bent on destroying David, and he was loyal to Shaul only for self interest and for his own ego, thinking that he, Doeg, the Edomite, now we know that Edom comes from Esav, and Esav's family from Edom comes Amalek. So you can imagine what kind of person this Doeg was. And so we find him doing terrible things in this chapter. So we have not only King Shaul, who is psychologically out of touch with the reality, and now he has a mission of destroying David. We have a villain of the worst kind, uh, Doeg the Edomite. We have the Kohanim who have moved the site of the whole of the Mishkan down into Nov, and we have David with his ragtag band of followers who are fighting on his with him and on his behalf. So we see that this is full of all kinds of characters, and certainly could make a very interesting movie.
Yeah.
By with all of these characters and the villains and bad guys and crazy people and etc. We also know that David goes from Nov, and we'll see how he has to run away from the protection potential protection of the Kohanim, and we'll see what happens to him after Nov. It's a very, very fascinating story. It's not only fascinating, but we find that it introduces characters and people who have a story, are put in the story by Shmuel for a reason to show us certain lessons in life. And we find that it is uh, very interesting that we're not the Jewish people in all of Tanakh, Torah, the Ketuvim, the writings, everything, the Navi, we are not afraid to show the world that we have uh, disappointing people. We have people who go against Hashem. We have troubled people. We have loyal people to Hashem, loyal to Bnei Israel. And we find that we are not afraid that to expose ourselves to the entire world to show people that we understand that humanity is not perfect and that we are trying to make our way through life the best we can with what God gives us. And so that in itself is a special lesson from this kind of a chapter. So I'm going to go to, um, let's see, we're going to go to,
Excuse me, are we doing chapter 21 today?
yes, we
Yes.
are.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Okay.
Yes.
No, is it 21? Yeah.
It is.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna put it up on the screen. Welcome Linda to the class. Okay. Now, can everyone see chapter 21?
Yes.
Everyone okay? Okay. So, Linda, would you like to read for us? I will stop you intermittently to do some explanations. Um, and if I don't, just keep on reading, okay?
Okay, not a problem. And he rose and went away, and Jonathan came to the city. And David came to Nob to
Achimelech.
Ahimelech the priest. And Ahimelech came trembling toward David and said, "Why are you alone and no one with you?" And David said to Ahimelech the priest, "The king charged me with a matter and said to me, 'Let no man know anything concerning the matter upon which I am sending you and with which I have charged you.' And I troubled the young men to advance to a hidden secret place."
Okay. So, the stage is set here. Um, when it says, and he ran away, and Jonathan went to the city,
Right.
this is where we left off from the last chapter where Jonathan met David in the field and told him, yes, indeed, your life is in danger.
Right.
And so David runs away. Jonathan goes back to uh, the city, or his father. And now the first place we find David running to save his life is to Nov, in this, like I said, in the south. And the priest, the Kohen Gadol, is Achimelech. Achimelech is, I believe, the grandson of Eli the Kohen, who was the
Yeah.
last Kohen Gadol in Shiloh. Okay, and now we find that Achimelech comes and it says he's trembling. Well, he's afraid of why David has come alone. He hasn't heard anything from the king. He is worried why David has come to Nov, and David now explains to him what what the matter is and why he is there. And he says that he's been sent basically on a secret mission by the king, and he can't explain anything to Ahimelech, and so consequently Ahimelech should take David's explanation at face value and trust him. David here, it's the first time that we see David being dishonest.
Right.
David is not on a secret mission for the king. He's running from the king to save his own life, but he feels that he cannot confide in Ahimelech. He doesn't know whether Ahimelech would turn him in, whether he's if he is loyal to the king, then David's life would be in danger. So we're going to find out in this conversation with Ahimelech um, that what David has in mind here. So let's continue to read. Go ahead.
Okay, that's 4. And now, what is there in your possession? 5 loaves of bread? Give them into my hand, or whatever is found. And the
Now,
priest,
what David says is he's telling Ahimelech that he needs food. He doesn't have any food, and for him or his men, and he needs something to eat. So, let's see what happens. Go ahead.
okay, and the priest answered David and said, there is there is no ordinary bread in my possession, but there is holy bread, if the young men have but kept themselves from women.
Okay. So Ahimelech says there's nothing here. I don't have any bread laying around, just the bread that we eat. There's only holy bread, the 12 loaves, the showbreads that remained on the shulchan in the Mishkan all week, and they remained fresh, and they were for the Kohanim to eat, and that's why refers to them as holy bread. And in addition to that, the priests, because they were holy, when they ate the bread, they could not have been unclean in from sexual relationships, or unclean in coming, in contact with anything impure. And so consequently, he says uh, that the bread is holy, and the men should be pure from women. Go ahead.
6. And David answered the priest and said to him, but women are withheld from us as of yesterday and the day before yesterday when I left. And the young men's garments are hallowed, and that is in a manner common. And even if today it would be hallowed in the vessel. And the priest gave him hallowed bread, for there was no bread there except the showbread, which was removed from before the Lord to place warm bread on the day it was taken. And there was a man of 8, right? And there was a man of Saul's servants on that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg, right, the Edomite, the chief of Saul's shepherds. And David said to Ahimelech, if if there is here in your possession a spear or a sword, for neither my sword or my weapons have I taken in my hand, for the king's business was urgent. So
Okay.
he's
So,
lying again. He's
oh,
trying to
right.
get, yeah,
Right. So
weapons.
you're right, Linda. He's not telling the truth again, but he has no weapons. He has nothing to protect himself, and he is feeling very desperate that especially David, the man who has that slew Goliath, that saved the Jewish nation is now feeling naked without any arms to protect himself in this in the begin as he begins his journey of running away from Saul to protect his own life. So he asked not only for food but for some type of sword or some type of weapon. Now we know that the Philistines at this time did not allow the Israelites to have any iron weapons, and the only weapon that was in the one of the only weapons that was in the possession of the Israelites, and it was kept in Nov by the Kohanim, was the sword of Goliath. So we're going to see what happens here. Now, in addition to explaining why that he needs a sword of some sort, we find that the name of Doeg is introduced,
Right.
and that he is called Doeg the Edomite, and that he was in charge of Shaul's um, herds. He was all the herdsmen of Shaul's sheep, and by mentioning his name, by saying he was the chief of, says that he had a high position in the court of Shaul, and he was loyal to Shaul. So we have a hint here that he is not going to be a very friendly guy. So let's see what happens here. Go ahead.
I think we're on.
Go start with 9.
Okay. And David said to Ahimelech, and if there is here in your possession a spear or a sword, for neither my sword nor my weapons have I taken in my hand, for the king's business was urgent. And the priest said, the sword of Goliath the Philistine, whom you slew in the valley of Terebinth, behold, it is wrapped in a garment behind the ephod.
Aphod,
If you
right.
ephod, if you wish to take that for yourself, take it, for there is none besides it here. And David said, there is none like it. Give it to me. And David arose and fled on that day from before Saul, and he came to Achish, the king of Gath.
Okay. So so now we see that it just seems like David is just asking for protection. He takes the sword, he takes the food that he's given, the bread that he's given by Melech, and now we see that he runs away to the second location on his escape journey. Now interestingly, he runs to a Philistine city of Gath, and he runs to um, Achi, Achish, um, who is one of the rulers of the Philistines in the city of Gath. Okay, now we're going to see what happens here. Very interesting, and we'll talk about it after you read about it. Go ahead.
And the bondsman of Achish said to him, is this not David, the king of the land? Was it not of this one that they would sing out with musical instruments, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s? And David took these words to heart and became very much afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. And he changed his speech before their eyes, and he feigned insanity before them. And he scribbled on the doors of the gate and let his saliva run down upon his beard. You know, there's one Tehillim where it tells you in the introduction that the
Yes,
reason
we're going to
he was.
get there. Yeah, okay, Linda.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, 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 it's okay. That's the one we're gonna talk about today.
Oh, okay. And Achish said to his bondsman, behold, you see a man who is mad. Why do you bring him to me? Do I lack lunatics that you have brought this one to rave in my presence? Will this one come into my house?
Okay. So this is the chapter where David he runs to God, and he hears that the people recognize him, and that the servants of Achish say to him, say to the king, isn't this David, Saul's right hand man in the army, the guy that killed our main uh, protector? And we thought we had everything wrapped up with Goliath, and he slew Goliath. Isn't he the one that they sing about in the streets? And Achish says, you know, um I think he acknowledges that that's who he is, and because David hears this, the only way that he could protect himself is to act as if he was crazy, and people were afraid of crazy people. And so consequently, what he starts to do is irrational things. He claws at the city gates, um, uh, tr- uh, just like a madman. And when he opens his mouth, saliva comes out of his mouth and dribbles into his beard, and his speech is incoherent, and he acts like a maniac. And this was David's way of trying to protect himself in the land of the Philistines. So you would say, well, why does he go to the Philistines if he knows
Right.
that they're his enemy? Well, David is the fugitive of the king of Israel, of Shaul, and the Philistines are not so happy to see him either. He has no place to go, basically. He can't go home. He can't go to his family. He can't go to Nov under the protection of the Kohanim. Shmuel, the prophet, can't protect him alone. And so, and by going to Shmuel, he puts Shmuel's life in danger. He has no place to go, and no place to run, no place to hide. But sometimes when you go to your enemy, they're more willing to, especially if you're a successful enemy, they're more willing to deal with you than your familial enemy. And so David sees here that they recognize who he is, and that possibly he could be safer here. The ironic thing is that Shmuel, in writing this, really makes it quite humorous that Achish says,
I have,
don't I have enough lunatics and crazy people in
yeah.
my kingdom, the Philistines? Do I need another, do I need another lunatic here? So, do I find that quite humorous, but this is where we're at with David. Now, the reason I said that I wanted to do the two chapters 21 and 22 is because we're introduced to a lot of things in 21, and then we see the consequences of these introductions in 22. And so I'm going to go to the next chapter and continue reading. Go ahead. Who else is with it? Lori, are you
Yes,
there?
yes, yes,
Okay. Lori, would you read for us, please?
yeah, sure. And David went away from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And his brothers and his father's household heard and went down to him there. And
Okay, so now We don't know how long he was in Gat. We don't know how long he stayed in the area of Nov. All we know is that he's on the run, and David is trying to find a safe haven to escape Shaul. And now the cave of Adullam is in the south, and that is where he's run to. All right, continue.
And every man who was in distress, and every man who had a creditor, and every man of embittered spirit gathered themselves to him, and he became a chief over them. And there were about 400 men with him.
Okay, this is the band of men that David amasses. It tells us who these people are, who are running away from creditors. They owe money. They all kinds of uh, challenging characters. Okay, so David has a group of men of about 400, and they are following him, and they're loyal to him. Go ahead.
And David went from there to Mizpeh, Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, let my father and mother come out now with you until I know what God will do for me.
Hmm.
And he brought them before the king of Moab, and they stayed with him all the time that David was in the stronghold.
All
And
right.
God,
So David wants to protect his mother and father. I'm not sure what they were doing in Moab. They were Yishai and his wife were in um Bethlehem, a- and then they eventually go down to Hebron. But we're not sure what they're doing there. But the king does offer protection.
okay, and one thing on this, I would guess that since King Saul was literally crazy and ready to kill David, that David must have thought he will go after my family. So
You're right. You're right. He
I
had
mean, that's why yeah,
right. David had no idea what
he
Shaul would do
was
next.
capable.
A-
Yeah, right,
and he probably felt that if he needed to protect his parents, he probably felt that he needed to watch over his family because
right,
Shaul, by virtue of his insanity, could have done anything that was irrational.
right. And
Okay,
Gad
so
the
we see that David is on the run, and this is many different stops along the southern area of Israel. Go
yeah.
ahead.
And God the prophet said to David, you shall not stay in the stronghold. Go and enter the land of Judah. And David went and came to the forest of Hereth. And Saul heard that David and the men who were with him had become known. And Saul was sitting in Gibeah under the tamarisk tree on a hill, and his spear was in his hand, and all his servants were standing by him. And Saul said to his servants who were standing by him, hearken now, O Benjaminites, will the son of Jesse also give all of you fields and vineyards? Will he appoint all of you captains of thousands and captains of hundreds? For all for all of you have rebelled against me, and no one revels to me. And when my son made a covenant with the son of Jesse, and no one of you feels sorry for me, or reveals to me that my son has incited my servant to rise up against me, to lie in wait as of this day.
All right. So isn't this an interesting pasuk
Yeah,
of
yeah,
what Shaul is accusing his most loyal men,
right.
the
And
tribe of
Betrayed.
Benjamin, um, of betraying him.
Right.
So
right.
we see that he has really sunk into the lowest possible place that he could mentally go, because he now feels that he has nobody, not even his son. He says that his son makes a pact with, the son of Jesse, of Yishai, and we see that he is in terrible, terrible. mental anguish here, and he will do anything to protect himself because he feels as though there's no one there for him. This must have been unbelievably difficult for not only his family to see, but for the nation to see this
Yeah,
man,
right.
this king, to deteriorate the way he has. All right, let's see what happens now.
Then Doeg the Edomite, who was appointed over Saul's servants, answered and said, I saw the son of Jesse come to Nov, to Ahimelech, and the son of Ahitub.
Okay,
And he
one
inquired,
what
yeah,
one person and one person stands up for Shaul. Now
right,
you know that anybody who is going to give Shaul information against David is has got to have an agenda. He's got to
Right.
have he's got to have some reason or be some kind of a terrible person to give the Shaul information about David. And so he stands up and he says to him that he saw the David in Nov, and he saw Achimelech have a conversation with him. And he identifies exactly who Achimelech is, and tells Shaul. This is exactly what Shaul is looking for. Someone he feels is loyal, even though it betrays David. And don't forget, David is still the appointed head of all of the army.
Right.
Okay. And yet, Shaul has forgotten all that. He is certainly not going to give David his due. He is going to go after him no matter what. And no matter, now think about this. David is running from place to place to place. There's no rhyme or reason to any of this. He's just trying to stay one step ahead of Shaul and protecting himself. And what does he see here? That the results are that Shaul doesn't care about the country. He is just so filled with anguish and hate for David that he will allow the kingdom of Israel to fall apart just to satisfy his own selfish, delusional needs of protecting the kingship. This is unbelievable. So
Well, he's really mentally ill. It's an obsession.
yeah, it is. It's become an obsession. Exactly right. Okay, let's continue.
and he inquired of the Lord on his behalf, and gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine.
Oh, he's a real tattletaler here. He's a real snitch, this Doeg. Go ahead.
And the king sent to call Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, the priest, and all of his father's household, the priests who were in Nob, and they all came to the king. And Saul said, Listen now, O son of Ahitub. And he said, Here I am, my lord.
Hmm.
And Saul said to him, Why have you rebelled against me, you and the son of Jesse, by your giving him food and a sword, and by inquiring of God on his behalf, to rise up against me as one who lies in wait as of this day?
All right. Saul is angry. He is there's going to be retribution here. This is not going to be something that Saul is going to let go. Continue.
Okay. And, Ah- and Achimelech answered the king and said, Now who all among your servants is as faithful as David, who is the king's son-in-law, and who goes to do your service and is honored in your house?
That's he's trying to remind the
Right,
king what the relationship is with David. He says
right.
not only is he the head of your army, but he's your son-in-law. You gave your daughter to him
Yes.
as a reward for killing Goliath and making you look good. So why are you coming to me, and as someone who is unfaithful? This is a whole matter of trust and relationships here. Go ahead.
Have I begun today to inquire of God on his behalf? Far be it from me. Let not the king impute anything to his servant, nor to all of my father's household, for your servant knew nothing of all this, less or more.
Right. He's defending himself that, look, David came down here. I had no idea what was going on, and now you're accusing me? How are you doing this? I'm not, and
Oh,
don't
wow.
forget, he's trying very hard and rightfully so to make sure the king understands that this was not treason.
Right, right. And the
Uh,
king said, you shall surely die, Ahimelech,
Wow.
you and all your father's household. And the king said to the footmen who were standing beside him, turn and put the priests of the Lord to death, for their hand is also with David, and because they knew that he was fleeing, and they did not inform me. And the king's servants would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord.
Wow.
And the king said to Doeg, you turn and fall upon the priests. And Doeg turned and he fell upon the priests and slew on that day 85 men, wearers of the linen ephod.
okay, so no, none of Shaul's men and servants would kill the Kohanim. It was a sin to do that. There was no reason to do it. They were innocent men, and not only do they, we'll see in the next pasuk, but it wasn't just the Kohanim. It was more than that, and 85 innocent lives were killed because Shaul could not stand the fact that they helped that just Achinoam, I keep saying Achinoam, Achimelech gave David a bread and the sword of Goliath. This is a terrible, this is a Chilul Hashem. This is a terrible, terrible thing. But we have to understand something. There's two things here going on, and I just want to give you some information. First of all, um, this is not an excuse. I'm not going to tell you that there is a good excuse for
No.
killing Ahimelech, but I did mention to you that Ahimelech was the great grandson, I believe, of Eli the Kohen Gadol in from Shiloh. Now, if you recall the story,
Yeah.
he had
He had
Eli
two
had
terrible
two
sons.
sons that were terrible,
Right.
terrible, terrible. And at the end of his life, when he died, the messenger comes to him and says that there's a curse on your family that no one will live to be ripe old age.
Hmm.
So by Doeg killing Ahimelech, it's in they say in fulfillment of the curse on his family. Now, having said that, David is cannot is should be held responsible for going to Ahimelech and putting him in danger the way he did, lying to him on two accounts. Then he needed, he didn't know that the he was going to be sent by the king and he needed food and the king didn't give him supplies and that he didn't give him any weapons. He had to leave so quickly. And so David here is really implicated in the massacre of Nov. And so consequently, we find that this whole situation is just terrible, blown out of proportion, unbelievably sick that this Doeg the Edomite would come and do the deed that no one in Shaul's army or in his service would do. So let's find out what happens here.
And
Go
know the
ahead.
city, and know the
Start here.
city. Oh, and the king said to Doeg, "You turn and fall upon the priests." And Doeg turned, and he fell upon the priests, and slew on that day 85
85
men,
men.
wearers of the linen ephod.
Go ahead.
Okay. And know the city of priests, he smote with the sharp edge of the sword, both man and woman, infant and suckling, and ox and ass and lamb, with the sharp edge of the sword.
Okay. Now, the reason I'm stopping here is because I want to point out something that I think is very interesting. Doeg is an Edomite.
Right.
Edomites are from Esav.
Ah, right.
Esav, Esav's the Edomites were the progenitors of Amalek. What was it that King Saul did not do when he was told by Shmuel in the name of Hashem? He
To
was
kill
he
the,
he
yeah,
did not kill all of the Amalekites,
Right.
and he didn't kill all the animals. Remember, he did.
right.
Right.
Shmuel comes and says, "What do I hear?" And he's, "Oh, we just kept the best of the animals for the sacrifices." Shaul could not ever take responsibility for anything that he did. And so consequently, he gets an Edomite, a relative of the Amalekites, to do his dirty deed that something he himself couldn't do years before by killing all the people. And it explicitly says that he killed the women and he killed the animals, and it mentions everything here that Shaul could not do this deed himself years ago, but now he's asking an Amalekite to do the deed for him. I find that very, very ironic. Okay, so now let's find out what happens. Go ahead.
And 20. And one son of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, whose name was Abiathar, escaped and fled after David.
Hmm.
And Abiathar told David that Saul had slain the priests of the Lord. And David said to Abiathar, I knew on that day that Doeg the Edomite was there, and that he would tell Saul, I brought about the death of every person of your father's household. Stay with me, fear not, for he who seeks my soul seeks your soul, for you shall be in safeguard with me.
So this one.
Right. So here we find that David takes full responsibility to Eviatar, and he admits that he knew that Doeg was there. He he felt that he probably should not have trusted him, and for good reason. And there were consequences for the actions that he put Ahimelech in terrible um, consequences of David's actions, and so there were this terrible massacre, terrible, and so from now on, David feels totally responsible for Eviatar, and he says, "Stay with me." He's going to protect him, and he's going to protect him from now on. He has welcomed him into his the house of David, and he will be there for this sole survivor of the Kohanim. This is do you see why I wanted to have the two
Yeah,
chapters read together? Because I wanted you to understand that when I talk to you about Doeg, you will understand what he did that was so horrible to make the commentators, the Chazal, call him the worst villain in the book of Shmuel, in such a horrible, horrible circumstance and what he did. I wanted you also to see the consequences of David's actions and by not being truthful to the Kohanim. I also wanted you to see that now what have we gone to five different locations, six different places with David and his band of followers. And so we're going to um, find out what is going to happen to David. He can't keep running, and Shaul can't run a country on the back of trying to kill David. So we've finished these two chapters. We understand what has happened, and now, do you have any questions? Is there anyone who has anything they would like to say before we
yeah,
move
I,
on?
I would, I would.
Okay.
I think that we're laying too much blame on David. He's running away,
Yeah.
okay?
Okay.
And the people are with him. The people see that Saul is a madman,
Right.
okay? In his head, even though he lied to him, it could be two reasons. He could have lied to him, and then when Saul came and they said to him, well, he said this and he said that, and Saul could have let it go. That could have been a defense. This is all psychobabble,
Right.
but at
Right.
any rate, the other thing is that how could he have known he was in a desperate situation? These were his people. They all knew that a madman was running the country. And to their credit, it's, like the righteous people in the world.
Right.
They always put themselves, they really even know, maybe if they don't know, that they suspect it could happen, but good should conquer over evil. And in this case, that I'm seeing so many similarities, even in this day and age, what we're all going through.
Hmm.
So he's very human, David, and I think he's I don't put blame on him because
Okay.
then you're going to say, well, no one should help anyone because let's overthink this. What might he do? And Saul, put the blame on Saul where it belongs because even in his madness,
Hmm.
he's throwing away his own people, murdering this, that. I mean, somebody would have to stop him at one point, but I give credit to all these people.
Right.
And that's
Good for
okay.
you. Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, clearly you stood up for David, and I'm sure that he appreciates it. I think that
I'll let you know someday.
yes. Well, on a lighter note, a little lighter note, you know that I've always been a fan of David, and no matter what his foibles were, I supported him because, like Chazal and like the commentators, they supported David because he was always honest and faithful to God, and he
Yeah,
always knew when he made a mistake, and he always admitted when he made a mistake, and he asked for forgiveness. And
right,
so, when a person can recognize that they've done something wrong, and and he didn't do it out of malice, he
right.
didn't do it, as you said,
To
out
put
of
them at risk.
any wrongdoing or being sneaky of any sort. He was trying to stay under the radar from Shaul, and he knew that he just didn't know where else to go, I believe. And you would think, like you said, Lori, that if he went to the Kohanim, the people who were supposed to be the epitome of kindness and goodness, and represent God, that they would certainly have protected him in some way, which they did. And
They
by
did.
doing so, they put themselves in great danger. So, yes, there's a lot to be said here, and you could argue back and forth and comment why these things happen. But what we're going to do here is we're going to go to uh, the Tehillim that David wrote about Doeg, and there is no doubt about, is this about Doeg? Isn't it about Doeg? It's chapter 52 in Tehillim, and it says specifically, right in the second line, about Doeg the Edomite.
Right.
So there's no question who this evil person is, who this horrible man was. And he did what he did, thinking that he would get on the good side of Shaul. But as all of us know, when people are irrational, when they cannot function in any type of normal society in any situation, they're going to they're not going to be safe by doing bad things for this person. So let's see what David has to say in chapter 52. Um, Sharon, would you be able to read for us?
Or from number 3.
No, from number 1.
Number one.
For the conduct,
For the conductor.
when Doeg the Edomite came, and Saul said to him, David, come to the house of Amelech. Melecha. Why,
Achimelech.
why do you boast of evil? Your mighty man, God's kindness is constant. Your tongue plots destruction, as a sharpened razor working deceit. You loved evil more than good, falsehood more than speaking righteousness forever. You loved all destructive words, a deceitful tongue. God too shall tear you down forever. He will break you and pluck you from your tent and uproot you from the land of the living forever. And the righteous men will see and fear and laugh at him. Behold, the man who does not place his strength in God and trusts his great wealth, he strengthened himself in his wickedness. But I am like a fresh olive tree in the house of God. I have trusted in the kindness of God forever and ever. I will thank you forever and ever when you have done this, and I will hope you, I will hope for your name, for it is good in the presence of your devoted ones.
Okay. So this is the Tehillim that was written about Doeg. Um, he David is writing about a villain, an evil person, someone who has no Yirei Shamayim, no fear of Hashem. He has um, no morality and no moral compass. And he is willing to do anything for his own gain and for his own ego. And this man, Doeg the Edomite, who was supposedly, and I believe this is probably inferred from Chazal and Midrash, which I usually don't quote. He was supposed to be a very,
Mm.
very learned person. Some say that he was a convert. Um, uh, and I'm not going to go into his background, but clearly the fact that they keep referring to him as Doeg the Edomite, um, Doeg, as the Hebrew Doeg is a Hebrew word for worry. And he was always worried about himself, about his position in Shaul's household, and what he could do to gain prominence. And when he told Shaul about David, he thought that he was going to create a circumstance for the downfall of David, and that possibly he would get rewarded by presenting David to King Shaul and bringing David down. And so we see that he did it for his own gain, for his own purposes, for his own immorality, for his own hatred of everything that didn't have to do with himself. And these are characteristics that we find of the Amalekites and of the Edomites. And these are very, very powerful words that David uses against Doeg. And I think that when we read about this, I don't know what most people, if they know or don't know about Doeg and the story here, or whether they are familiar, but we could also say we could substitute this, and we could put in Hamas, we could put in Hezbollah, we could
Right.
put in Ayatollah Khomeini. We could any Haman, any evil that is in this world could be substituted for Doeg's name, because these people are totally self-absorbed and totally have no relationship with Hashem. And if they do claim to have a relationship with God, it is only to be used against everybody else. It is not an honest, it is not a loving relationship, it is not a yashar relationship with God. Excuse me. And it is a relationship to use God, to use God's love against against people who want to make the world a better place, and not to give the perpetrator of terrible, terrible deeds any kind of reward. And David here is saying that this was who this man was, and that David feels that he and his relationship with God is as if it was an olive tree. Of we know that the olive branch, a symbol of peace, a symbol of honesty, humbleness, is what David wants to say in his apology. He feels very badly that this happened to the Kohanim, and he takes full responsibility. And as we leave chapter 22, we find that Eviatar, the survivor of all of this terrible, terrible um, tragedy of Nov, is now under David's wing, and joins his group of men. So when we read chat, and there are others that we'll do next week, Tehillim, that also have relate to these two chapters that we'll talk about next week. So does anyone have any questions? Any comments?
Again, I have a statement.
I'm
I think
happy.
I I think
Lori, I'm thrilled.
okay, I think Doeg has a God. And I think people like him have a God, and they worship evil and cruelty. And look, for centuries, wherever they lived and took over, they were rewarded. They kept taking over, they kept raping and pillaging, and and atrocities, and that's their God. So it's literally their God, supposedly,
Right,
versus Hashem.
right, right.
So you know what I mean? It's almost
E-
what's to be
right,
expected
right.
from people
Evil.
who worship evil
Hmm.
and get their reward. They get a reward at one point or another because they keep on doing it.
Right.
Well, they get satisfaction out of doing it because they think they've done the right thing.
No, I
Um,
don't think honestly, I don't think they think they've done the right thing. I
mm,
don't think there is such a lexicon about the
really?
right thing,
Mm.
Anyhow, that's it.
Well, they do it for their own. When I say they feel they've done the right thing, they feel they've done what it takes
Yes,
to get their reward, their
right,
personal satisfaction
right.
for what they want by doing such evil.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. Anybody else have any? Linda, do you have anything written down from the last time we talked about this? Tehillah?
No.
Because I remember you kept track of all of this. It was wonderful.
There's another Tehillim. I was just looking. Um, also, Psalm 56,
Right, right. We're going to
which,
talk about that next week.
right. Well,
Okay.
that in the 50s of the Tehillim, there's a lot of stuff about David running away and bringing all these other disgusting people.
Well, we're going next week. We'll see what happens to David, and we'll see what happens in this kind of like thriller of watching what happens between this chase between Shaul and David, and eventually it will come to an end. You can't run forever. You can't chase forever, and there are consequences during this whole thing. So we'll see what happens next week, and I hope that you'll be with us, and I hope that you will uh, look at some of these Tehillim that are quite beautiful and quite interesting. So I'm going to